Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. Gus Kattengell, Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com, back with you. It's the end of the calendar year is upon us, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. Hard to believe that Wednesday, it is 2025, sir.
Yeah, and the way that the end of 2024 has been going, I think
Goodbye.
I'm actually ready to turn the page. But yeah, it is crazy that we're almost at the end of the year. I think this year flew by, although the last couple months have been a little slower than the previous 10 or so months, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely have felt like this year has gone by. This season, I guess you could look at it as it's not ending soon enough, or it's just going not the way that you would like it, as the Pels suffer another loss on the back-to-backs here. The Rockets and the Grizzlies. We touched a little bit on Houston's game, on the show, on the broadcast on Friday going into it. But, Jim, we didn't have a podcast on Friday. So the Rockets were a loss, 128-111. The Grizzlies were a loss, 132-124. Two completely different games. One had a game where head coach Willie Green called his team soft. And then the next game was a much more competitive game, which is something that C.J. McCollum said that was important for them and what they wanted to do. And it's what he had to say.
It was just more aggressive in our approach in terms of physicality, fouling, getting to the free throw line. It's always, a sign that you're being more aggressive when players start complaining to the referees. And I think most nights we're complaining, which means that, teams are being aggressive. And I think tonight they was complaining a little bit, which is a sign that you head in the right direction. But I think it was just a more aggressive mentality, and we got some stops. I think that helps. That helps with transition. Got out and ran, and it was a more entertaining game in terms of us, competing and giving ourselves a chance. Obviously, we didn't get enough stops, and that's a really good team you're playing against, and they're big, they're athletic, they scramble well on defense, and they hit some big timely shots, but I thought we competed.
Coming up next segment, our guest, Mr. Wes Johnson, television analyst for Pelicans broadcast. And I know you're going to ask him about his thoughts as to what he wants to see. Final 50 games. That's what we have here.
Mm-hmm.
What is that kind of what you want to see?
Yeah,
what CJ said?
I mean, they had to respond Friday after what happened in the game against Houston on Thursday. You could kind of look at it like they didn't have a choice. It wasn't like if they showed up Friday and just kind of slumbered and walked their way through the game that people would have been cool with that. I mean, it was one of those things where it was like you better show up and bring effort, and you better play with aggressiveness. So, I mean, CJ mentioned that they played with, I just said more aggressiveness. They had 29 free throws in that game. Unfortunately, Memphis had 35. So, I mean, some of that, I can't remember if there was some fouls at the end of the game that added to those totals for Memphis. But, I mean, the Pelicans scored 124 points. I mean, the way that a lot of the season has been going, we would kill to score 124 points in a lot of these games. They were able to just put up a lot more points in that night. They actually had over 60 points in both halves, which was great. But as CJ mentioned, they didn't get enough defensive stops, so still didn't get the win. But at least it was a lot more of a representative effort of what you think you're capable of with this group of players than what they did against the Rockets.
Here's Willie Green after practice yesterday on what he saw after looking at the game on tape.
I thought defensively you can feel our presence on the floor. They're a really good team, and they're just coming off a game where they scored a lot of points. So we know that they can put points on the board, but we made those shots difficult. We turned them over, got out in transition. We contested some of their shots. They hit some, but I just thought overall our togetherness, our competitive spirit was there, and you can see it when you watch the tape.
So, look, that's obviously something that you want. To be competitive and do that. And then that obviously takes us to where we're going to be tonight against the Clippers to end the 5-game homestand. Now, there was something nice on the floor yesterday at practice, Jim, and that was Jose Alvarado being able to go through a full practice. And that means his return to action is around the corner. first and foremost, being back at practice, Jose?
Good, man. It just feels good to be back running, tired, but it feels good. That's the part I miss. And, I'm just happy to be, playing the game that I love and, hopefully just bring a good energy to the group again.
One of the questions he was asked, Jim, was, okay, so what's the attitude, obviously, as the season hasn't gone the way you want with him coming back?
I mean, it's tough, like I said, obviously the season, how it's going. We just, trying to find all the good in it and then keep on pushing forward. And like I said, I'm just trying to bring Jose energy and the good energy. And, I told everybody, let's not play the record. Let's play for us and keep moving forward, and it's going to get better.
I know you're a big Jose fan, and you think his return can help.
Yeah, because, I've tweeted this a couple times, too. If you look at the win-loss record of the Pelicans when he played last season and when he didn't play, it's pretty drastic. And then, of course, it's happened again this year. I think they were 3-8 they're 3-8 in the games that he played this year, so it wasn't great. But, they're 2-19 in the other games that they played. So, I think I might get into this and do a little bit more research, but it's incredible, not only the win-loss record for the Pelicans when he plays and when he doesn't play, but also his plus-minus. I know a lot of people are skeptical about the plus-minus for individual players because there's a lot of different factors, but it's really kind of uncanny to look at what the Pelicans do when he's on the floor, even within games, in terms of the plus. They had one of the best benches in the league last year, and it wasn't just Jose, obviously. There was other guys involved in that as well, but that's a huge part of the big drastic change in their performance and outcomes this year is they had one of the best benches in the league last year, and this year they're trying to play a lot of minutes of guys that were probably maybe on the third team or the deep bench guys that are now in the rotation every single game. So, it kind of speaks for itself in terms of the difference that's made.
Yeah, and obviously, again, tonight's the Clippers, and it's interesting that Willie Green was asked about what it would take to beat the Clippers, because he mentioned something that I don't know if a lot of fans are kind of thinking about it when it comes to that team, but here's what Coach had to say.
Yeah, it's going to take a consistent effort for 48 minutes, and that means taking care of the basketball, lowering our turnovers first, being able to get the ball up, make some misses, get the ball up the floor quickly, get into our actions. Share the basketball is a big component for us, and then it really all starts with our defensive mindset. Will we be physical? Can we take them out of some of their actions? Can we finish possessions, rebounding the ball? And now we can get out and play offensively.
In the question to Coach, he brought up the fact that Clippers are fourth in the NBA in defense?
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. You don't think of that, right? With James Harden, and I know Paul George isn't there anymore, but fourth in defense.
They've got a lot of really good role players. They're players that people don't necessarily think of immediately as, great players. But they've done a really good job of kind of blending everything together, whether it's Zubats, their starting center, who's having maybe the best year of his career. Norman Powell, I think, is having the best year of his career as a guy. I've always liked him. I've always thought he was a good player, but he's leading them in scoring. It's actually not James Harden that's leading the Clippers in scoring. It's Norman Powell. And, right now the Clippers are sixth in the West. To me, they're kind of the forgotten team, if you think about it. You got the Thunder off to an amazing start. You got the Grizzlies and Rockets that have been great stories in terms of how improved they've been. You got the Mavericks with the stars that they have, the Lakers that everyone talks about. Those are the top five teams in the West. And then you have right behind them the Clippers. And then if you look at the teams right below the Clippers, it's teams that have Jokic, the Timberwolves with Edwards, Golden State with Curry, the Spurs with Wemby, the Suns with their all their trio guys. It's the Clippers are just like the team that everyone just kind of ignores, but then you look at their record and it's like they have the same record as the Lakers. They're a half game ahead of Denver. So they've just been impressive. The fact that they lost Paul George in the offseason and Kawhi still hasn't played a game, and they're incredible. 18-13 so far. So they're just solid. I think they're one of those teams that doesn't beat themselves, whether it's because their defense is so good or they don't turn the ball over a ton. Their offense is 23rd, so they haven't been great at that end of the floor, but they've been so good defensively that it's made up for a lot of that. And this is another team that the Pelicans are playing against that's in the top tier of the league defensively. The back-to-back Houston-Memphis was the same thing. They had better results, as we talked about, in terms of putting points on the board.
Yeah.
But I think this is a similar challenge for New Orleans of how do you get over 105, 110 points to put yourself in position to beat the Clippers.
Very good points. All right, let's have our conversation with Mr. Wes Johnson and get a former player's and coach's perspective as to what's going on with the Pelicans here as well. I think you'll enjoy this conversation. All right, time now to bring in our guest for today, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, which I always love when Wes Johnson comes in because, well, he's a little tall. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I have to look up a little bit.
That's just a little bit there as well. How you doing, Wes? Good to see you, man.
Appreciate you having me.
An interesting season so far, no doubt to say the least. But we were just kind of having a little fun and talking about it. You know, it's the holiday season. It's the time to kind of, reflect on things of that nature. Man, how did your Christmas go?
Christmas went good. Busy. The kids, chaotic. It was different age ranges. So it was the youngest and my daughter excited for it, and the oldest ones, they were kind of chill. They wasn't saying too much. They didn't want to spoil anything, but it was fun. Like, we got to do everything at home. Nobody came in, so it was real intimate.
Wes, we talked to you before the season about how this is a new role for you, and obviously there's always an adjustment when you're doing something that's brand new. It feels like the Pelicans have decided to throw everything possible at you right off the bat in terms of making it as difficult and as challenging as it could possibly be with obviously the way the season has gone with the record that they have right now. But, I wanted to ask you, how do you look at the rest of the season? Obviously, they're 22 games under 500, so right now, even if they went on a huge winning streak, the likes of which we haven't seen around here, they still would be hard-pressed to even get back into the playoff race. So when you look at the last 50 games of the season, what do you think should be the goals right now? What are some of the things that you want to see them try to accomplish and achieve, whether it's over the next couple weeks or even just over the last 50 games of the regular season?
For one, continue to compete. The guys that are out there and guys that are available, go out there and compete. That's the first thing for me. I think throughout the course of the remainder of the season, I just think the chemistry building, getting the likes of your teammates, outside of individual, just the team aspect of it, just going out there and just doing and playing the right way. That's all you can ask for, because the circumstances are the circumstances. Sure. We don't want that to be what it is, but it is what it is. So just going out there and just being a professional, doing your job, coming to every day ready to go, ready to work, regardless of the schedule, regardless of the opponent. Just going out there and just continue to compete, because it's a tough situation, and a lot of these players probably won't even be in another situation like this. So it's just one of these things of, in my third or fourth year in the league, you can say, like, this happened to me. So just learning from this day by day, learning, taking the positives from it, because it's easy to fall back on the negative side of looking at it as, oh, poor us, poor me. So like I said, it's coming to compete and putting your best foot forward.
How important do you think it is to just reestablish how good you are individually or as a team? This team won 49 games last season. They went into this year, I think we saw a lot of people last offseason say this could be a top 6 team, maybe not first, second, third in the West, but a team that was, able to avoid the play-in tournament by, say, finishing 5th or 6th in the West. So, I don't think people around the league ever looked at this team as a team that would be struggling this much. So, how important, you're not that far removed from your playing career. How important do you think it is to the players just in general to just reestablish the fact that this is a good team and this is a team, might not be able to achieve the goals this season, but what you can put together over the last 4 months of the season, how that might lead into next year? Yeah,
of course. As an individually, you want to go out there and do your best. You don't want to go out there and be selfish in the sense where I'm trying to get mine. But you hear the silver linings of Missi going out there, Trey taking a big step. So all these guys are getting opportunities. The Brandon Bostons, the Jerrys are getting the opportunities to go out there and show what they have. Those are the things that you can continue to build on. Like, how can I be the best for this team in this role? So people look at it as a player, it's like, I want to go out there and I want to be able to do ISO stuff, or I want to be able to shoot threes, but that's not what they're asking you. So if you're able to understand what the team is asking, the coach is asking you how to be a star in your role, if you're able to do that, that's this thing that's going to help you stand out, to let you know that you're coachable. The other team is like, okay, I can have him on my team regardless of all the teams that are watching. That's the thing about this league. It's always a job interview for somebody. Yeah. Even though if you're on this team right now, just look at it as, how can I be the best person on the Pelicans right now, because somebody else is looking at you. So, like I said, it's a tough situation. Never seen this before. It's tough for anybody, the fans, the players, organization, to see this how it is. So it's just one of those things. Continue to be positive because it's tough.
One of the things that Jose Alvarado talked about after practice on Sunday, excuse me, as we await his return to the court, was he wants, when he comes back and he's able to play in games, it's not gonna happen Monday, but hopefully in the near future he'll be back, in uniform. He talked about how he wants the guys to not look at the record, to not look at the situation overall, and just kind of, I don't know if starting from scratch or a clean slate is the right way to put it, but how difficult is that, or how easy is that? I mean, you played in the league for a long time. You were on teams that had struggles and maybe got off to bad starts. You get to a certain point in the season and you know that realistically the playoffs aren't possible.
Right.
So how difficult is that to do what Jose described, to just be like, don't look at the record, just play basketball and just do everything you possibly can to be positive about the situation?
I mean, it's funny that you're saying this because I talked to Jody Minks before the game, one of the coaches on the staff, and we had went through this with the Lakers, and he was like, man, I'm like, we had a injury-prone team before too. Like, we went through this before, and he was like, yeah, we won this bad. I'm like, no, it wasn't, but it was similar. And he was like, but we had fun. That's the thing. Like, we came in the locker room, was like, we're not making the playoffs. Everybody, like, not say go out there and, like, be the best them, but go out there and just have fun, play for one another. Regardless of our record, regardless of the outcome, we went out there and we had fun. And then end of the season, all of us got contracts. All of us got paid. I went to the Clippers. He went to Washington. Nick Young got re-signed with the Lakers. So all of us really got deals after that. It was just our individual side of us, you know what, let's be the best us. So if guys got hot, we were like, go ahead. Feeding the ball, play for him. Like, Jody had a career high one game. Nick had a career high one game. I was, like, having all these steals, so they were, like, funneling everybody so I can get deflections and steals. So it was like we were playing a game within the game. So it was like in that locker room, how Jose is saying, everybody has to be on the same page with that. Regardless of you going out there, we're down 20, down 30, or in the game, out the game, it doesn't matter. Like, we're playing for one another because end of the day, when we put the jersey on, that's who you're playing with. And that's who you're playing for at that time. You have individual stuff that you have for your family that you want to do and overcome and try to be the best you. But the guy next to you that had his jersey on, that's your brother at that time. So you have to go to war and make sure y'all go out there and compete.
This season has gone, I mean, honestly, more poorly than I could have ever imagined. But there have been some positive things, and not just short term this season, but things that I think will carry forward into the future. I think maybe number one on that list is what Yves Missi has done so far. I mean, what's been the most impressive part to you, or maybe the most surprising thing about his development of where he is on December 30th compared to what we saw from him, during training camp back in Nashville in October?
I mean, he got thrown in the fire pretty quick.
Yeah.
So he had no choice but to continue to develop and grow and learn. That's a testament to him and his work that he did. But it's one of the things he had to learn on the fly. You're going against the best of the best every night, especially in the West. And using one thing he has and he's blessed with is his athleticism. And him tapping into that more, knowing how I can use that to my advantage. Like, all the players learn their little niches in the game. Like Joker, I'm slower than anybody on the floor, but I'm using my IQ, I'm using my ability. Same thing with Missi. He can use his athleticism. He's starting to figure that out. So game after game is going to be different, but seeing him being able to grow before our eyes is one of the things that you can't ask for. It's like he didn't have a choice but not to continue to grow. So it's just I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying it.
You mentioned the Lakers team that you played on, where maybe there were guys that got to be in certain roles or bigger roles than they expected. I feel like a lot of people thought Trey Murphy would make a jump this season, but lately it seems like the numbers that he's putting up and how productive he's been have been kind of the next level for him. And I don't think necessarily he would have been had this opportunity to be the number one option some games,
right,
number two option game if everybody else was healthy. What have you seen from him lately that you think might be encouraging as far as some of the improvements that he's made?
His ball handling, him taking people off the dribble. I mean, if you were saying like if everybody was healthy and we had the whole team, he'd been spotted up, spaced out, maybe playing up for closeout. Now he has the ball in his hands, have them make plays, be a playmaker. So him being able to do that is showing the growth of him game in and game out. So that's only going to add to him once we're whole again. So he's getting live game reps. You can do that in practice. You can do that with your trainer. But in-game reps that you happen to see a double team and have to read and react on the fly and take people off the bounce and do different moves. So him being able to add that to his game, knowing like I did these reps before, been seeing a double team, is only going to help him and help us.
Last couple of things I wanted to ask you about, just kind of going forward with a couple of the guys that we're expecting to see back on the court pretty soon and what the impact that they can make. I guess starting with Jose Alvarado, I mentioned how, to me, he brings a lot of intangibles in terms of his attitude and that kind of thing. I mean, what do you look forward to about him coming back whenever that is, in terms of the impact that he can make on the team?
One, he's another body that we can have added to the team. But I just think the energy that he brings, the mentality that he brings, it's infectious. Back to the days when he was in college, he was the same thing as he was a leader. And going from those days and his journey to fight, to be in the league and have a stamp and have a career carved out for him in the NBA. So that being said, like, his mentality is going to rub off on everybody. And in those games where we're lethargic and we're out there like, okay, come on, guys, pick it up. He's that guy that can give us a spark and give us a boost to bring everybody along. So Jose is dearly missed. I mean, don't want to rush him back, but whenever he's back, you're going to see the impact right away.
One of the most unfortunate parts of the season, and there's been a bunch of them, is we only got to see Zion Williamson for 9 games. I mean, they were 3-6 at the time that he went out. They actually won more games, if you think about it, in the first 9 games of the season before he got hurt than they have in the 23 games since then. Right. So that tells you a little bit of his impact. I mean, another stat, they haven't won a game that Brandon Ingram hasn't played this season either. That's another subject for another day. But Zion has started to do some practicing and stuff like that. I mean, what do you expect from him? And I mean, how exciting is it to think about him being able to get back on the court and be in uniform? I mean,
for us, I'm excited. I know he'll be excited to get back on the court. I know he had a tremendous summer, and I don't think he wanted time missed. I think he had something to prove to people. Mm-hmm. So him being out on the floor is going to draw so much attention to guys. So it'll open up more for guys like Jordan Hawkins in the trade. So they'll be able to create, shoot, and do stuff without being harassed the entire game. Mm-hmm. So adding Zion back to the mix and him being on the floor is only going to amplify everything that we're trying to do. And he's one of those gravity players. The whole defense is going to scheme and try to be around, but him being on the floor is going to be something that, for him, nothing that you need to come out here and put the world on your shoulders and try to prove anything. Just go out here and go out there and play and be yourself, because one, the season is the season. This, now you can work on stuff you need to work on, like the stuff that you're thinking about. Like, I did in the summer. This is the time where you can go out there and do it.
One of the things that has been really frustrating to me and perplexing too is when you look at the Pelicans stats as far as the three-point shooting, they're last in the league in makes, they're near the bottom in percentage. And if you look at individual guys too, one of the things I've said so many times to Gus is, like, if you look at the career of Trey Murphy or CJ McCollum and you look at their percentages, it's like you look at every season and then this season it's just totally different. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you talk about Zion, I mean, how much of that do you think has been a factor that the quality of the shots that some of these guys are getting is just not as good as what it has been in the past because of the attention that Zion draws?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you could add BI to that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you add 2 guys that are gravity pullers, like they're the scheme of the team, and you look at it, and if Zion, everybody was playing, you're scheming for Zion. How can you take Zion's left hand away? How can you stop him? But you're saying that, then you have CJ, then you have Trey. So it's like you don't want to leave them too much because they can shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. CJ's 40+ when he's on. Same with Trey, can shoot from 35 feet easy. So it's one of those things that if you remove that player, we don't have to inch over as much to try to take Zion's drive or try to pack the paint so B.I. can get to his pull-up. So now we're close to him now. So now we're making Trey put the ball on the floor, and now he's had to shoot something further out. Same with CJ. He has to over-dribble more. So now it's one of the things that we're getting them to do something out of their character, even though they're good, even though they're pros, they're elite at scoring. But now we're making you and forcing you to do something way more than what you're used to.
It kind of leads me to something that I heard Willie Green and C.J. McCollum actually talk about it after the game on Friday, along the lines what you're saying. This is the longest stretch, guys, that we've had this current starting group together. So you would think, hey,
8 games.
You're right. You would start getting some wins and stuff. But CJ's like, hey, look, we actually haven't played that much together. Right. And to your point, Willie Green, I think yesterday after practice mentioned that. He's like, look, we came into the season and, I have an idea, I have a philosophy, I have a game plan with what we're going to do. That's with the 5 that I thought were going to start. Right. Okay, you lose 1 or 2, you can still adapt. Kind of if you can dive in a little deper, and I mean, on the periphery, we'd be like, hey, those are 5 guys, those are pros. That's CJ, that's DeJounte. That guy's played, Trey's played. How can they not learn to play together? But you just said something that really stood out. Not in their character. All those guys that I just mentioned, they play a little bit different. Then you throw in, on a positive thing, a guy like Missi.
Exactly.
Who they weren't playing or planning to have played.
Right.
But he had something. Okay, well, is he a pick and roll guy? Well, then who's our pick and roll guy? Is that what we're doing offensively? Can you kind of, because you've been a coach and a player here as well.
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to have guys that are pros and starters play together and gel, but not gel just yet?
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes too, this fear of transparency. I'm saying like, okay, why can't they mesh? But then it's like I'm looking at it, not say from a fan, but I'm outside. I'm not in the huddle, the locker room. So I'm looking at it, this clear eyes now. And I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay, hold on. Take a step back, and I'm watching it. So if you watch the game, you'll see Missi trying to roll. You see Herb trying to roll. So it's like, who's popping? So that's the inconsistency of them actually being able to play together. So when they say they haven't played together that long, if you just watch the game throughout, they're going stretches where everything's flowing. And then when they get time where somebody's getting in them playing physical defense, that's when the chemistry's supposed to be there. That's when you see they haven't been together that long, because CJ wants to go left and Trey's trying to roll and come get the ball, but the spacing's off. So you'll say like, oh, is it Willie? Is it this? It's like, no, it's not. It's just the guys haven't been on the floor enough to know like, I need to be in this spot, or I'm going to cut, or I'm going to pop. So it's one of the things that is off just a little bit. Those come over time. Then you're saying Missi's thrown in the mix with those 4 players. Those guys been in the league quite a bit. So you're saying DeJounte, he's been the point guard from San Antonio, then going to Atlanta. He had to deal with different things. Same with CJ. Trey's emerging. Herb is all defense. And then you put Missi, a rookie, that's getting thrown into the mix of trying to guard the ADs and the jokers all the time. So his mind is going crazy. Oh, I got to run up into this screen right now with CJ. Which way does he like to go? So all of these things of screening for the right player, knowing when to slip out and when not to. Also, am I rolling? Am I popping? It gets thrown off in the course of a game, which is going super fast. So the chemistry of them being together comes over time. So to your point, you saying the last 50 games, this is where you see them actually meshing and trying to figure out who's rolling, who's popping, how to be fluid when they're on the floor. So they're saying be patient. It's hard to be patient when you got games coming every other hour. It's like today you got a game, then the next 2 days you got a game. It's hard to have practices and trying to go through live stuff when teams are scheming and trapping certain players that are not used to being trapped. So it's like one of those things like growing pains are going to happen, but when you get the team back whole, these guys have been in these situations that they haven't been in before. Now they add a little bit more knowledge. That's when the IQ grows through a season like this.
Yeah, Willie's phrase after practice yesterday was learning to fly a plane while the plane is flying.
Right.
I don't know about you guys. I've been on a plane a couple times.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to do that.
Doesn't sound great.
I wouldn't feel too comfortable on an airplane. Attention, please. Anyone know how to fly?
Right.
But that explains, right? Some of those turnovers where you go, Jim standing next to you and you throw it away.
Right.
Or, Jim throws at your feet. It just, I know for us, it's like, how do you do that? You're basketball players. But to your point, it's that unspokenness of, hey, I'm about to take off, throw it out in front of me, things of that nature. And I know that sounds simple, but
it does. It's crazy because you can look at a player and it's like, I'm going back there. I can look at you like I'm going. And knowing like just throw it, I'm going. So you know the trust factor there, but I might be looking at you and you looking at me, oh, he's finna cut. And then I throw a bounce pass and he's looking like, what are you doing? It's like
which happened last game?
Yeah, I'm not on the same page as you right now, but it's just like really learning the tendencies of each player. And it's like it's tough to learn on the fly like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, we saw a couple of times with DeJounte Murray knows how to play point guard.
He does.
And then several times in his homestand, we see him jump in midair and throw it and be like, uh-oh.
Oh, right.
Right. So that's a great explanation for fans that are listening. Like it's not that the guys forgot how to play basketball. It's just they haven't played a lot together, and I know that sounds
crazy, but it is what it is,
man. You and Aaron do a great job, and just things like that to give us a little insight as to why we're seeing what we're seeing. And at the end of the day, to your point, final 50. Let's see them play hard and win some games, man.
That's it.
Man, thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
Mr. Wes Johnson, analyst over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, and we'll see him very shortly. Our thanks to Mr. Wes Johnson, who, I mean, we've seen him a couple of times. It never surprises me just how tall he really is.
Yeah, I think he was like 6'8", maybe listed in his NBA
tall he
career.
really
So
is,
yeah,
yeah.
he's
Maybe
pretty tall.
it's just because of The Office,
Yeah.
Well, these aren't short ceilings either. He's awesome, man. It's great to hear from that standpoint. All right, let's get to it.
Well, it's a Monday. Thankfully, Jim is always our Friday. It's time for Mr. Eichenhofer to give his players of the week and a player to watch for this week. What you got, big guy?
For player of the week, I mean, it's interesting. The Pelicans really only played 2 games last week based on the schedule. We had a little bit of a lighter week in terms of the holidays coming in, but I thought it was probably a no-brainer to pick Trey Murphy as the player of the week. He averaged 28 points per game in those 2 contests. His shooting splits were 46% from the field, 43 from 3, 93% on free throws. He was 9 of 22 from the three-point arc over those 2 games, and I think we're seeing, he obviously started the season late because he was coming back from injury. To me, we're seeing the shooting from him that we know he's capable of, and he's just gradually bringing that up to the rate that we expect from him and that we know that he can play this well. I like the fact that he's been so aggressive. Wes talked about it a lot as far as he's been doing more stuff off the dribble. He's kind of diversifying his offense a little bit. I still think we all understand that his catch and shoot game and his floor spacing is the thing that he does at an elite level, and the rest of his game is kind of progressing towards that. But they need somebody to just ramp up how much they score, and for him to average almost 30 points a game for the last 2 games, even though they didn't get a win, I mean, that definitely made them a lot more competitive. For the player to watch, I don't think I've picked him for the player to watch lately. Probably since he came, maybe the first week he came back. But I'm going with Herb Jones, and the reason for that is because I feel like there's some very interesting defensive assignments that the Pelicans have over the next 4 games. They play the Clippers tonight. Obviously, James Harden and Norman Powell. Powell's averaging 24.2 points per game, Clippers leading scorer. So Herb will probably get some time on those guys or some combination of them. On Wednesday, the Pelicans are playing Miami in Florida. They have Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero. Kind of a similar situation, actually, to the Clippers, that the big-name guy is not the leading scorer right now. Tyler Hero is leading the Heat at 24 points per game, so we might see Herb on him as well. And then just ending out the week, they have the 2 games in a row against the Wizards. They play them on Friday and then Sunday. Jordan Poole for the Wizards is averaging 21.3 points per game, having a really good season, kind of bouncing back from his first year in Washington was definitely a big-time struggle. So those are some of the guys that we're going to probably see Herb match up against, and, I mean, he's going to be, again, very vital to the Pelicans trying to get back into the winning column.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens as well. Amin Thompson, Tyler Hero, in a little scuffle yesterday. 6 ejections towards the end of that game between the Rockets and Heat. So I don't, will he be available on Wednesday? We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he got a couple of days, but
we'll
obviously if they don't have Tyler Hero, that could.
Yeah, I haven't seen the suspensions yet. I mean,
it
might be something that we catch maybe after we stop recording today. But yeah, that was definitely a little bit more than the run-of-the-mill type NBA fight. So maybe you will see a little extra. I know Yusuf Nurkic got 4 games, I thought I heard, for slapping Najee Marshall against over the head, which I couldn't believe that he actually did that. But Nurkic has been kind of a little bit of a repeat offender with some of the stuff that he's done as well. So maybe that was part of his suspension. But yeah, you're right. We'll have to pay close attention to see how that affects the Heat over the next stretch of games.
Good old Najee. He wasn't a knife on that day.
Don't mess with Najee, though, man. Come on.
Swung first, asked questions later. Yeah. It was a beautiful still. Did you see he changed his Twitter banner?
Yeah, it's that.
To the actual punch?
Yeah. By the way, too, I looked this up real quickly. The Heat actually don't play until Wednesday. So they don't, if there's any suspension at all, it will be the game on Wednesday because they played Sunday and then they don't play again until New Year's Day.
I'll take any help we can get.
Absolutely.
And he'll be in. That's Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. Of course, you can hear him after the game here tonight here as well in Pelicans OT, as he does each and every home game with us. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gus.
Yeah, we'll see you again next week. No Wednesday, Friday podcast this week. The New Orleans Pelicans podcast will be back with you next Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Here's Will, full week, and we're off and running. So we'll see you on the 6th right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.